Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready? Hello everybody, it's Jeff. Really beautiful day here in Maine today. Not a cloud in the sky. Tiny bit windy out. Temperature was like in the high 30s, low 40s. But otherwise sunny, can't beat that, right? So it was really nice out, and a lot of people were out doing things today. But I gotta say something here. I've noticed since Saturday, I think, I've been going places around town, and it just seems like nobody's out. There's, I'm not saying everybody's gone, okay? I'm just saying that, especially over the weekend, where the places, the stores and all that are usually full of people, very, very few people. I'm just like, I'm not sure what's going on here. But it felt like a regular weekday over the weekend, and Easter's coming up and everything, but yeah, I don't know, it felt like everybody was just gone or something, like half the population. It's like after in the movies there when Thanos snaps his finger and half the population of the universe just disappears, but yeah, very, very odd. And I know I wasn't the only one that said it, because I made a comment to somebody about it, and they said, yeah, it is unusually slow, and it hasn't stopped being unusually slow here for the last 3-4 days now, so I don't know what's going on. It could be people are just trying to hold on to spending a little bit, because, there's a lot of uncertainty coming in the days to come here with the economy and everything, and people are backing off on the spending, which, would be a good idea if they want to try to enjoy the summer, because they'll need that money for summertime activities if they're going to go anywhere. So people are just probably cutting back on eating out and frivolous spending. And that's good, because, they're being smart, that's, usually a sign that, tough times are ahead. So I think it's starting to, dawn on people that it's can't be spending everything, impulse buying and stuff. So anyway, I got a couple of videos. Will you decide what the hell you're gonna do here? Jesus, it's like a fly in the air. This first video here is from Brian Tyler Cohen. And Mark Elias, attorney that shares the show with him a lot of times, made a big win in Pennsylvania. Okay, I don't know, if you, because it's been dragging on for a while. These lawsuits and stuff. They take forever to show any results. But they were suing Pennsylvania over the absentee ballots that were not signed or marked according to the rules or something like that, and those ballots were not being counted during the election. Okay, So they challenged this in court, and it took a while, but they won that those ballots should be counted now. So all the ballots they tossed out, hey, they need to be recounted now. Okay, they need to do a recount in that state, because now all those ballots that they claimed were not, you couldn't, they didn't meet their requirements to be counted. Well, now they said they are, as long as they are, what do they call it? They have to be postmarked before the end of the election day. Okay, as long as they have that postmark, they're valid. Okay, so anyway, let's go to the video here, and then we'll talk some more about that.
I've been watching for years now a tug of war over whether or not absentee ballots, mail-in votes that are submitted by voters that are otherwise totally lawful. The voter is registered, the voter has only voted for one candidate, they only voted by mail, but where they forget to either put a date next to their signature on the outer envelope, or they put the wrong date on the ballot envelope next to their signature. And the Republicans have been fighting tooth and nail to prevent these ballots from counting. And just to give you some numbers, Brian, in 2022, there were more than 10,000 of these ballots that were rejected for misdated or undated. In 2024, that number is almost certainly in excess of 5,000. We don't have the full numbers, but we can account for 5,000 of those ballots being rejected. Again, these are otherwise legal votes that literally were thrown out because the voter either didn't put a date next to their signature on the outer envelope or put the wrong date. And a federal court has now held that throwing out those ballots violates the United States Constitution. It violates the right to vote because it is throwing out these votes. And there is no reason, there's no purpose for this dating other than a trap for the unwary voter and to fulfill the mission of Donald Trump and the Republicans to disenfranchise voters.
Well, Mark, to that point, we already know that the Republicans knew full well that there's no reason to have to date the ballot because it's postmarked. And so this is, to your exact point, just a trap to be able to get mail-in ballots, which overwhelmingly skew Democratic, to be disqualified. And that's exactly what happened. And so we're in a situation where, okay, after the fact, retroactively, they've said, okay, this is unconstitutional, but the Republicans knew it was unconstitutional. The point is just that they can do something, get the desired outcome during the election, and then sure, after the election, a judge will come forward and say this was unconstitutional and you can't do it. And they'll say, okay, we can't do it. But that doesn't mean they're not going to find the next thing moving forward and say, okay, now let's do this. And then we'll get through the election cycle. And then sure, in 2027, some issue will be litigated and a judge will say you can't do that. And they'll go, damn, we can't do that. Okay. But the whole point is that they need to lay traps so that they can try and disqualify mail ballots because, again, they skew overwhelmingly Democratic. And so does this establish some type of precedent where they can't use any of these trap tactics, entrapment tactics to disqualify mail-in ballots? Or are we going to be in a situation where, yes, they can't, mandate dating the outside of the ballots, but they can just do something next time that will have the exact same effect?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you that this is going to end Republican voter suppression tactics or elections urgent, but it won't. But you're right. When the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee and Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee brought this lawsuit, it was clear to everyone that this date was doing no work. Right. The state of Pennsylvania acknowledged that the date didn't do any work. It was the Republican National Committee that intervened in the case to make up theories by which this could be constitutional, as you say, likely knowing full well that what they were spewing was nonsense. Let me tell you what their theory was in this case. They said that requiring a date instilled solemnity in voting. It made people take the act of voting more seriously. Because they dated.
We're not allowed to vote unless we acknowledge adequately that it's a sacrosanct process.
Yes, that was her argument. Their argument was, to use their word, it was that it made it more solemn. It added solemnity from the word solemn to the voting process. It made people sit up and take the voting process as more solemn. By the way, this is the party of Donald Trump. I just want everyone to back up for a second and realize that they're arguing that what we need is solemnity in voting at the same time that Donald Trump is constantly lying about voting, saying you may never need to vote again. that he wants to be a dictator for a day, and we've seen how that's turned out. Like when you think of the Republican Party, does solemnness really come to mind? But that was our argument, and yes, the federal judge discarded it and said this is like not like a thing. And by the way, the Republican Party offered no evidence that this even does create a more solemn voting experience. But, I think it was largely pretextual. They just wanted to find an argument that kept this case alive, as you point out, until after 2024, when there was a very close presidential election in Pennsylvania, an even closer Senate election in Pennsylvania. And so what we see in case after case is that my team and I and plaintiffs, like in this case, the Democratic Party, are constantly having to play whack-a-mole. And I wish it weren't that way. But Brian, you recently had on your show Allison Riggs, a state Supreme Court justice in North Carolina who won her reelection by a narrow margin, but it was confirmed by a recount and by a second recount. And the Republican Party in North Carolina is trying to throw out 65,000 legal votes for a similarly flimsy theory about why these votes shouldn't count. Now, I hope that at the end of the day, like the courts there reject that. But people don't realize how committed the Republican National Committee, which was in both of these cases, and their right-wing, allies are in finding any argument to disenfranchise voters, to prevent them from registering, and to not certify elections that they don't like the results on. So this is a big win in Pennsylvania, but I hate to tell you that the fight's going to keep going on, but the fight's going to keep going on.
Well, I do want to underscore the importance here, because this is a scheme that Republicans have employed that, to your exact point, disenfranchised 10,000 people 2 elections ago, disenfranchised over 5,000 people in this last election, and they did it in a state that is the tipping point state in this country, the state of Pennsylvania. So the notion that we should be losing 10 or 5, however many thousands of votes in a key swing state where, by the way, the majority of mail-in voters are Democratic anyway, is first of all completely unacceptable, and second of all especially important that you were able to litigate and win this race. Does this make it?
I want to point out an additional important connector, which is the role of the media. Because when Bob Casey, the senator from Pennsylvania who lost by a few thousand votes in Pennsylvania, it was more than 5,000, but it wasn't a lot more than 5,000 votes. When we were in court for him, the Washington Post and a lot of the national media were like, "Oh, Democrats, you shouldn't be litigating elections because you are doing exactly what Donald Trump did," which is insane. What we were litigating were very close elections to try to make sure lawful votes were counted, as opposed to what Donald Trump did. But meanwhile, here we are, it's April and Allison Riggs that election's still going on in North Carolina.
And not a word.
The Republicans are just litigating away to try to overturn that. Here, we won this case in Pennsylvania. I'm looking forward to the big headlines in the Washington Post and the other legacy media talking about how this case in Pennsylvania, was just showed that Republicans were engaged in voter suppression all along in Pennsylvania. But it feels like, Brian, outside of you and Democracy Docket and some of the other, pro-democracy outlets, the legacy media just seems to treat what Donald Trump does with one, and Republicans do with one test, and then what Democrats do, like as an inconvenience to them.
Right. I mean, this is them grading the Trump administration and the Republican Party on a curve. Like, if Democrats take one step left to center out of line, then all of a sudden you're going to have a windfall of coverage. And by the way, that's their prerogative to have critical coverage against both sides. But the reality is it's not critical coverage against both sides. It's critical coverage against the Democrats, judged by the same rules of politics we've always had. And then Donald Trump, it's just kind of assumed that he's going to act in a way that is overtly hostile to democracy. And so unless he does something that's going to surprise anybody, then they're not going to bother covering it to the same degree, because, it's not going to get the same, they're not going to be able to lean in the same way against him, because we just assume that he's going to be an enemy to democracy. And so that's the asymmetry of the media at play, which, by the way, underscores the importance of the work that you and your team at Democracy Docket do. So I'm going to put the link to Democracy Docket right here on the screen. Anybody who's looking to support the invaluable work that Mark and his team are doing, please go ahead and sign up and support fearless independent journalism. Mark, the question that I wanted to answer is there going to be an easy way now for Republicans to replicate this strategy that won't go against the fact that they've already lost in court? Does this prevent them, for example, from using these traps on the outside of envelopes, or is it very narrow where they can't make you sign your date, but maybe they can require a signature? Maybe they can, have you write what day of the week it is. Maybe they can have you write the last four numbers of your social security number, like something like that.
Yeah, look, this is the state that, remember, Republicans wanted to throw out ballots and were successful throwing out ballots that didn't have inner envelopes. Remember the naked ballots?
Yeah.
That was Pennsylvania. This is a state where Republicans are refusing to change the law on a bipartisan basis to allow the counting of these absentee ballots earlier so that election results can be announced earlier in Pennsylvania.
Right, because they want to be able to have a red mirage. They want the day of ballots counted first so that they have a pretext to be able to say, Donald Trump was clearly winning. Republicans are clearly winning. Any effort to count legal, lawful ballots and have them be added to the totals throughout the day, now we can just say, oh, look, vote dumps are happening at midnight and 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. It must be fraud because, look, all of the early totals were just Republican heavy.
Right. So the fact is, Republicans are shameless. They are willing to spend whatever money they need to spend in order to fight against free and fair elections in court. And that is the reality. So when you say, is there going to be some other scheme? Yes, there'll be some other scheme.
Yeah.
There'll be other schemes in Pennsylvania. Or we talked about a scheme that they've currently got going on in North Carolina, throw out votes. They run a very efficient voter suppression and election suppression war machine. And it grinds on day after day. When a lot of Democrats and progressives turn their attention to other things after election, the RNC just keeps going. We have an important election today in Wisconsin. And at the same time that Elon Musk was doing his $1 million giveaway, I saw an article that said that there was some ice cream shop or someone who was giving out free ice cream to people. And the Republican National Committee wrote a letter to them saying how you can't give out free ice cream. Like, these folks have no shame.
Yeah.
And they will latch onto anything that they can latch onto. If it means disenfranchising voters, inconveniencing voters, where they think that those voters vote Democratic. So, we all just need to stay very vigilant. We all need to recognize that that's the state of play and that we need to make sure that we are fighting every single day, just like they are to disenfranchise voters. We need to be fighting every day to enfranchise them and make sure that we have free and fair elections.
Well, look, we have spoken at length about the need for law firms in particular to be able to stand up against this administration and fight back and not capitulate. And, you put your money where your mouth is here, because not only did you take a posture of standing up to this administration, but you've also fought them in court right now, and you've also defeated them in court right now. So again, for anybody watching right now, to support the work that Mark and his team, to support the work that these fighters are actually doing in the courtroom, a small step we can all take is to sign up for Democracy Docket. It's also, a great resource to be able to follow the news anyway, but more broadly, a way to support their efforts. So I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.
Now, it's there never was a problem in Pennsylvania before this last election about these ballots, okay? They were counted just like every other state's ballots were counted for years. But now, because the elections matter so much to the Republican Party, and now that the results of those elections matter so much more to the Republican Party, because they know that their numbers are dwindling, okay? And their ideas are not popular. And it's a hard sell for them to get people to ban abortions and stuff like that. So, that's kind of how it started, with Republicans tampering with the validity of ballots and, and all this gerrymandering and, voter suppression tactics that they've been using all this time. It's all because of that. This is how they compensate for the lack of not getting support where they need it, because they know that people just ain't behind it. They wouldn't be doing this if these were popular positions that they're taking, okay? And so right off the bat, they're basically thumbing their nose up at the majority and saying, we're going to get our way whether you like it or not, okay? Totally shit on the whole democratic process, okay? So they start in with trying to challenge every fucking ballot. And it doesn't matter how many of their own they take down with it, as long as they get the results they want, you know. And, you know, they make this so difficult for people now. And they certainly didn't like how the election, you know, when it was Trump versus Biden, okay, they didn't like the idea that there was so many people voting because it was easier to vote. People could, you know, get mail-in ballots and stuff like that, you know, and they didn't like that. So they tried to stop all that shit, you know. So this case in Pennsylvania, which is really like the first step, you know, and there'll probably other states that'll try to do the same thing, because Pennsylvania wasn't the only one. But they're going to have to challenge, you know, these results here, especially over the reasons or lack thereof of what they say. Well, this can't be counted, or, you know, this ballot can't be counted, that ballot can't be counted. You know, the next thing you're going to hear is, oh, well, you signed that with black ink instead of red ink or something, and we can't count it. You know, they're just pulling shit out of the sky here, and it's just ridiculous. What they'll come up with. And there has to be a line drawn that says, look, there's a federal fucking rule here that applies to every state, okay? And nobody can challenge it, because this is the way it's going to be. Every state's got to have to follow a uniform fucking standard. There shouldn't be like a state by, you know, each state doing their own little thing. It should all follow the same fucking guidelines, just to make it clear. All right? Because we are talking about voting when it comes to the presidential elections and stuff. Those are federal decisions, okay? We're not talking about voting for a governor or voting for a state senator or something like that. We're talking about a fucking national thing here. So that there should be, you know, across the board federal rule here on that, and say this is it. Every ballot has to be like this. Every ballot has to look like this, okay? And the fact that each state has been taking care of that matter in its own way kind of leaves the door open to a lot of different kind of flaws, right? Don't you think? I mean, it's ridiculous that we can't really trust the system, because, you know, for one thing, you got each state doing its own thing, and two, you got Republicans fucking around with the system in each state. Okay? So they're making the vote a joke. And people, I mean, you should take it more serious. You know, we're talking about the only goddamn thing you can do as a citizen that gives you the fucking steering wheel, as it were, to what direction this country's going to go in. And you guys aren't really standing up for it. You're not you know, you should be protecting the vote as much as you protect your fucking gun rights. Okay? It's just as important, you know, at least for the Democrats, as it should be for the Republicans, okay? It should be that important, because really, that's the last line of defense before you have to pick up the gun, you know, as it were, okay? But the vote is the front line here, all right? And the only line when it comes to democracy. And if you do not protect that line, what have we got? Nothing, except violence. So if we don't protect that, and we don't, you know, hold our political leaders accountable for trying to fuck with it, okay, you know, you might just as well say, screw it, you know, we're going to have to go to Fifth City or something like that. You know, I feel like that's, you know, it shouldn't, you know, this story really should have been out in the forefront here for a while, but because, like I said, it's a court battle. Court battles take a long time. People lose interest in them, and they forget that they even are going on. And I think because this wasn't in the news so much, that actually probably helped Mark to win this case, because nobody was paying attention to it. So while Trump was out there, you know, throwing out executive orders, you know, like he's, you know, throwing out, you know, fucking dollar bills when he's spending money, keeping the spotlight on himself, he's taken the spotlight away from this fight in Pennsylvania over the ballots, and look what happened. You see? So yeah, the media is only going to be attracted to one story at a time, okay? And Trump can't always be the story when other things are going on. And it's just kind of odd and kind of ironic in a way. But definitely, I think Pennsylvania should be looking at a recount here. They certainly have grounds now. I want to read this here because this was an issue here that happened here on the 30th. Says this is from Channel 2 in Atlanta. A Georgia woman who suffered miscarriage charged after fetus found in a dumpster. Tifton, Georgia. Police in South Georgia are investigating after they said a fetus was found in an apartment dumpster. Tifton first responders were called to Brookfield Mews Apartments regarding an unconscious woman who was bleeding. First responders later confirmed the woman, identified as Selena Maria Chandler Scott, 24, of Tifton, had suffered a miscarriage earlier. Scott was rushed to the hospital for medical treatment. A witness told Tifton police Scott had put the fetus in a bag and placed the bag in a dumpster outside. Tifton officers found the dead fetus. At that time, no charges were filed against the 24-year-old mother. The next day, upon further investigation, Tifton police arrested and charged Scott with 1 count of concealing the death of another person and 1 count of throwing away or abandoning a dead body prohibited. Tift County Deputy Coroner Blair Veazey told WALB the autopsy revealed the fetus that was found in the dumpster at the Brookfield Mews Apartments was approximately 19 weeks old. Veazey also told WALB there were no signs of injury or trauma and the baby never took a breath. It was determined that the mom had just had a natural miscarriage. Quote, it's just an unfortunate, sad situation, unquote, said Veazey had told WALB. Scott is being held at the Tift County Jail, awaiting her first appearance. The investigation is ongoing. Yeah, and the thing is that a group called Pregnancy Justice that's fighting 200 other cases that are similar to what I had read here across the country. And Dana Sussman of this program, of this organization, I guess they have, like lawyers and stuff like that. They're trying to stop this injustice that goes on here because of the bans and stuff like that they're putting on women across America here, with, different states, not across, but, in different states. And it's leading to things like this happening more frequently now because they're afraid, They're afraid that, they're not going to, they might get in trouble, because, or something along those lines, a miscarriage, and the doctors even are like scared to do anything. They go to the hospital and the doctors are afraid to touch a woman now if she's pregnant, what to do, because they don't want to lose their license and go to jail. It's the fear. And so, what are they to do except to try to fight these incidents, to charge this woman, and I guess, didn't they say that, a infant has to take its first breath to be declared, alive or something like that? And they said the fetus did not take a breath. So the fetus was dead, when it, so, how are they going to convict her, over this or punish her over this, okay? It's one of those situations that wouldn't even come up if people would just leave women alone to do, what they have to do. Okay, and leave the doctors alone to do what they have to do. If you stop meddling in other people's affairs, these things wouldn't happen. Okay, these things wouldn't happen. You say you're saving lives, but what just happened here? Okay, it was a miscarriage for one thing, which is a common occurrence for, you know, even before we had all these bans and stuff like that. Miscarriages are, you know, also a thing that happens. Okay, you can't stop that, and you can't put laws on it to stop it. It happens. But because there's this fucking rabid religious fervor out there that people cannot stand the idea of an abortion, that they think they can enact laws on the human body to prevent it from happening. I mean, the arrogance of some people is astounding when it comes to trying to butt their nose in other people's affairs. And that's what this is all about, really. It's like, you know, at some point we got to say people have a right to privacy here. You know? I mean, we can boil this down to a basic thing, you know, and just say, well, if I had a cold and I was prevented from going to Walmart to buy some medicine to fight my cold, who are they to tell me I couldn't do it? You know? I mean, I got a clinic that I go to all the time here for various things. And then all of a sudden somebody says, oh, well, you don't have the right to go there and take care of, you know, a colonoscopy or whatever the hell they want to do. Okay, you're not doing that no more. That's against our views. Really, something that might save my life, and now you're telling me I can't have it, you know, or I can't do this, I can't do that. You know, who the hell are you? You know, is there a church around here somewhere with your fucking name on it that people worship to? Because I don't see it. You know, you know, you're just an average person. You're no better than I am, and you're sitting here telling me what I can, where the bear shits in the woods. Go fuck yourself. You know, and that's what women you need to really do today with these goddamn assholes that are out there trying to ban their bodies of doing this or doing that. Okay, you need to get in their face. You know, and tell these motherfuckers where to go. You're gonna have to get an attitude. You know, you put your fucking hand on my face, motherfucker, and I'm gonna hack it off. Okay? You stay the hell away from me. You got your own problems to deal with. Deal with those. That ought to be enough to occupy you for the rest of your life. And I think that, you know, it's crazy that women can get so scared now that this is what happens. You know, they have you know, they get a miscarriage. And they're so scared about what's going to happen, they try to hide it. You know, get rid of the, you know, what happened. Not evidence, just get rid of what happened because they're afraid that, oh my God, I'm going to land in prison. You know, because they don't know what to do. You know. I mean, and obviously it would be a justified fear, because what if they went to a hospital and they had the miscarriage there? They would still feel afraid that, oh no, I didn't give birth to a live baby, you know, or something. You know, again, even the doctors might even share that fear. So we've created this bullshit brain circling scenario here that would not exist if we would use our fucking head in a logical fashion. But we've allowed people with insane ideas, with prejudices and this religious fervor to take over common sense in this country and twist it into a fucking a joke, a parody of our country. That's what we've done. We've let them get control over people's lives, and look what they've done. They've made the act of getting pregnant into a fucking joke. All right? They've tried to impound women, you know, and turn them into breeding factories, and then when they don't do what they're supposed to do, they get thrown, they get charged, they get arrested, you know. And it's like, you know, this is not the way life should be, okay? Other countries, communist countries, treat their women better than that. Okay, they don't try to control the birth process. You know, Jesus. Well, but like I said, they got to learn the hard way. And so, if it takes the death of all these fetuses or babies to happen in order for them to realize that, you know what, it ain't working the way we thought it was going to work. If we ban abortion, maybe we shouldn't do it no more. Okay, when it comes to the point where they get to the realization that they were being stupid and they have a big cemetery full of dead babies and stuff, maybe then, you know, they'll say, okay, let's go back the other way, you know, and then put some rights, you know, on women, as if the women actually had to earn those. They're human beings. Do I have to fight for a right to breathe the air that I breathe? Okay. Do I have to fight for the right to drink the water that I drink? Okay. Fuck you. The first people that were on this earth here, okay, could do all these things without worrying about fucking rules. Eat, drink, breathe, have babies. Nobody was around to tell people how to do those things. Okay? And here we are, what, 9 billion people on this earth. So, look, stay the hell out of it, okay, religious folks, you Christian idiots here, stay the fuck out of this. We don't need your 2 cents and your little fingers into this process, okay? Stay out of it. Mind your goddamn business. Go to church, ask for forgiveness for being what you are, okay? And leave the rest of us to our own devices here. If what you say is right about the way the man is going to end, then there's nothing you can do to stop that, right? So why try? Christ. Let's go to a commercial break.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
What do you guys think of when you hear or see conservative, like, white men?
First instinct is sometimes, like, scared of them. We go to a southern school, so it's a lot of those people, and I think it's just, like, a lot of entitlement around kind of just their vibe, I guess.
Feeling my husband with 8 inches was like reliving our first time. Thanks to the salt trick, he makes me gush like a broken pipe. And just last month, I was ready to divorce my husband. But then he showed me his new 8-inch magic wand. Now, I can barely hold it in my hand. This salt trick is hands down the biggest advantage any man can have heading into 2025. I wasn't kidding when I said you should take it easy with this trick. It can turn a sad little twig into a raging anaconda. It's ridiculously simple. And it's heartbreaking to see so many men missing out on the chance to finally make their women happy. So far, this easy homemade trick has helped over 29,000 men naturally increase both size and thickness. This is the same secret top-paid adult film actors use to keep their bats way above average. It's also how they manage to handle 3, 4, or even 5 women in a row without losing their stamina. The best part? It works for men of all ages, takes just 30 seconds before bed, and can give you some incredible results in no time. If you want to skip the details and go straight to the video, just click the Watch Now button below to learn how to pull off this simple but powerful trick tonight. You should probably watch it alone, if you know what I mean. Don't waste any more time. Watch it before it gets taken down or you can't find this video anymore. Your wife or girlfriend will thank you for the rest of her life.
Hello, Daniel Caldwell. This is the VA Crisis Response Hotline. We're calling to inform you that your emergency request for in-person counseling for PTSD has been denied. To stop fraud, waste, and abuse, these services will be replaced by VetCare AI, powered by Grok, an X company. President Trump and Doge Chairman Musk, thank you for your service and being part of our efforts to eliminate waste. Have a nice day. Press 1 to repeat this message. Press 2 to return to main menu. Press 3 to leave a message, and an AI operator will call you back if your problem is deemed unwasteful. Goodbye.
Holy fuck.
Were you just checking out her ass?
No, I wasn't.
You know what? Fuck this.
Wait, babe, calm down. Oh my god. Mary! I am sorry!
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
I can't do that for you.
Will you leave that alone, kitty?
Sit. Oh. Welcome back. Okay, everybody. I see here that RFK Jr. is laying off the entire Office of Infectious Disease and HIV/AIDS policy, or whatever. And Trump is urging Republicans to defund NPR. Oh, geez, another attack, huh? Boy, he really hates fucking the press, you know, Jesus. It's funny. You know, he hates the press so much. But yet, you know, if they weren't around to put cameras in his face, he'd be unhappy. You know? Christ, I mean, he loves it when the cameras are around him, but yet, you know, who's got the cameras? The press. And he's gonna, I don't know. He's fucking crazy, that guy. Well, and just, you know what, this month here, I guess, I looked at a list here that I made. The GDP is down. The unemployment is up. Inflation is rising again. We got trade wars going on with our allies. The stock market is tanking. Trump just admitted that we're pro-Russian. Okay, not like we didn't know that already, but We might not have a flu vaccine next year. Thousands of federal workers fired, inhumanely detaining migrants at Guantanamo Bay, renamed the Gulf of Mexico into the Gulf of America, which infuriated Mexico, allowed the Tate brothers to live in the U.S., confirmed to be on Epstein's flight, pardoning 1,500 plus January 6 criminals, destroying our Department of Education, and sending green card citizens to El Salvador. And now he's making insane demands of our allies by asking them to ban diversity, companies not to, and that's just 15, 16 things that I, quickly put down on paper here, but it's ridiculous. That's not the way a president is supposed to have in just 3 months in office. I mean, Christ, we've been through a lot of presidents, you and I, okay? And usually the first 100 days in office, you would see something, good to talk about, right? But I challenge anybody out there to name something in the first 3 months of his presidency that was good, that he did. Okay? Something that's good. But I don't think we're going to hear that, okay? And I think a lot of people in MAGA are finding that out now too, okay? In fact, I watched a video today on YouTube of a January 6er who was come around and said that, yeah, he made a big fucking mistake supporting Trump, and that he, at the time when he was part of the crowd that was out there storming the Capitol, he was a very troubled individual to begin with. He said he was an alcoholic, and he was dealing with a lot of things, and he felt he needed to belong to something, and it happened to be MAGA. But he got swept up into the emotion of it all, and he said that once he was arrested, and he was put in jail. And that time in jail, he sobered up, basically, because it made him go cold turkey. And he started to realize that, seeing the things that Trump was doing, that, he was so stupid to follow the guy, But he was listening to all the idiots around him, telling him how such a wonderful man that Trump was, that, he just wanted to go along with the crowd. And that happens a lot. Okay, people do that shit all the time. I mean, that Jim Jones motherfucker there. Okay, I think that's kind of a lot of the reason why a lot of people did what he was saying, is they just wanted to belong to something. Okay, people have a need to be with others. I don't know. Not everybody's that way, but I think a lot of people feel like they need to have their beliefs justified by joining others that have the same. And so I think that this guy, or, the January 6er, and that I was watching that video, he just, he was one of those folks that, kind of felt lost in the world, and he needed to feel like he needed to be around people that thought, like he did. I mean, he's still Republican, but he allowed that, that fucking cultish fervor to sweep him up, and all of a sudden he got sucked into a goddamn wave of shit. And he said he ain't the only one that's turned their back on MAGA now. And but it takes courage, and for him to come out and say what he said. And he wasn't one of those that got violent. In fact, I mean, the story he tells is that he wasn't, way up there in the front, I guess, or something, but he did show up there as things were happening. And he ran away when he heard, people were getting hurt. That's when he called it quits and started to head the hell out of there. But they still found him, because they had cameras everywhere, so they picked him up, and and he still got punished for being there. But like I said, he doesn't want Trump's pardon. That was one of the things he said, because being pardoned by the man that instigated that fucking mess that day was no pardon at all. Okay? That's like one thief excusing the actions of another thief. Okay? Getting a pardon from one of the guys that was part of the fucking crime isn't no pardon. You know, and it's too bad the courts don't see it that way, but that's kind of what it is. His pardon meant nothing to him. Okay? The fact is, he's the one that, you know, him and a whole bunch of others had to pay the price for what that bastard asked them to do. He got away with it. The others didn't, you know. Anyway, this other video that I have is, hold on a second here. Comes from the Humanist Report. And there's an incident that happened at a Walmart here where an employee was fired because she was being followed around to the bathroom by a bunch of transphobes, and they harassed her, but she got fired. You'll have to see the video to understand where I'm coming from. So let's go to that here, and then we'll talk about it.
I went into the restroom, and I was in the stall. I was locked in the stall, doing my business, whatever. And a man's voice was suddenly yelling in the restroom, and it wasn't just like someone yelling from the door, like you know, the maintenance guys do when they're cleaning. It was someone in the restroom. And
what was he yelling?
He was yelling.
Do you know what he was yelling?
He was yelling all this stuff about and beating them up, and how he's going to protect, I guess, his wife or his girlfriend. Whoever was with him was yelling at him, "Babe, get out! Babe, get out! Baby, you gotta get out of here!" And I was the only one in the restroom.
You just watched a portion of a TikTok posted by Amber Janae and her daughter Danny Davis, where they explain how Danny was followed into a Walmart bathroom in Lake City, Florida, which is a small town, by some transphobic creep who perceived her to be trans. So by accosting her and threatening her, he believed that he was defending women or some shit like that. Now, Danny is not a trans woman. In fact, she's a cis woman, and she goes on to explain that her family is actually uncharacteristically tall, and Danny is 6'4", so she thinks that she was probably profiled because of her height, which is possible because, I mean, transvestigators have a history of targeting women for some arbitrary reason, namely because they don't meet their specific subjective criteria for who is and isn't a real woman. I mean, earlier this year, a 19-year-old cis woman was followed into a different Walmart bathroom, this time by 2 cops, because they thought that she was a man, when in actuality, she's a masculine-presenting lesbian. But lesbians aren't the only targets, because a 24-year-old straight cis woman was followed into a bathroom in Las Vegas by a different transphobe who thought that she was trans because she had a short haircut. I mean, even the dumbasses in Congress who push anti-trans hysteria the hardest, who purport to be experts on the subject, by the way, tried to kick a cis woman out of a bathroom at the Capitol because they thought that she was trans. So it just goes to show you how transphobia harms all women, including cis women, but the people who viciously target trans people under the pretense of protecting women don't seem to understand that, or they don't care. But what makes Danny's story different is that this incident occurred when she was working. She works at Walmart. She's worked at Walmart for 7 years, and this man followed her into the bathroom during one of her shifts. And she goes on to explain in that TikTok how terrified she was because she thought that he would be there waiting for her when she got out. But thankfully, he wasn't there. So naturally, she reports the incident to her supervisor, and days later, she learned that that incident actually cost her her job. I'll repeat, she was fired because she was harassed by a transphobe.
It scared me a lot. I left a few minutes later. I was really glad that, I was afraid he'd be out there waiting for me, honestly. And, sorry, it's hard to talk about,
Okay, baby, you're doing good.
I went back to my area.
Took an anxiety pill?
I did. I took an anxiety pill and calmed down enough to tell my direct supervisor, who was there.
So your direct supervisor is your lead, correct?
Team lead.
Your
yes.
team lead. That's who your direct supervisor is.
Walmart vernacular.
Okay.
And so I told her what had happened and why it had scared me so much. And she listened to me. A couple days later, I went into work for the start of my week, and I got pulled into the office by 3 coaches and told that I was terminated for the incident because I did not report it to a salaried member of management.
So, and then what else did they say?
They said it was a security risk that I did not report it to the correct member of management.
So what do you feel like they were saying was a security risk?
I feel like they were saying I was a security risk. That they were concerned that something might happen if he had been more dangerous. It could put other people at risk.
So let me get this straight. She's a security risk because she's a tall woman and thus is likely to be perceived to be trans, which could invite anti-trans harassment. Therefore, it's necessary to fire her to protect everyone else from said anti-trans harassment. You know, don't ban the customers and kick them out of the store for being transphobic. Punish the employees who are perceived to be trans. This is a level of victim blaming that is unheard of. And it's the dumbest thing that I've ever heard in my entire life. So, I mean, do you just use this at this location as a rationalization to discriminate against trans and non-binary people altogether? Are they also security risks because them being trans might lead to transphobic harassment from customers? I mean, what if a straight male worker acted too effeminate and people perceived him to be gay? Would you fire him to avoid the ire of homophobic customers? I mean, they could literally use this excuse as a justification to fire anyone for any reason. They could terminate all non-white employees so as to avoid endangering the white employees from potential customers who might be racist. Yeah, it just kind of seems like they wanted to discriminate. And they want to make sure that they made it clear to the employees that they're going to defend transphobes and not trans people or people who are perceived to be trans. And I love that they threw in the whole technicality about, we have to fire you because you didn't report this to the right manager. Fuck off. That's bullshit and they know it. This is how Walmart treats their employees, right? This is how they treat one of their employees who was there for 7 years. And it's not surprising since the same corporation forces all of their employees to watch anti-union propaganda videos and subjects them to this daily humiliation ritual.
We are Walmart. We are Walmart. Everybody, one more time. We are Walmart.
We are Walmart. We're all Walmart. We're one big happy family. Even though, you don't reap the rewards of your labor and we take all the profits at the top, we love you. We love each other. We're like one big happy family. Just make sure that you monitor your fellow family members to make sure that they're not unionizing. Otherwise, we're going to have to kick them out of the family. So be suspicious of them. Watch them. If they're a little bit too chatty, make sure that you ask them about what they're doing so that way they don't form a union. By the way, can you imagine me doing that? I don't know if they still do this, but when I worked for Walmart for a couple of months when I was in grad school, they forced us to do this shit. They literally forced us to do this shit. And as you can imagine, doing that made me want to kill myself. Now, like all multinational corporations, they don't give a fuck about their employees. But there's something uniquely gross about a corporation forcing their workers to express enthusiasm for a company like that. You're going to clock in and they make you do that weird fucking ritual. And on top of that, they all kind of like pay fealty to Sam Walton like he's some sort of demigod. Even the way that the employees talked about Sam Walton as if he was this altruistic man and not a ruthless capitalist was very bizarre and almost culty to me. It's just weird. But the silver lining about this shitty corporation is that even though Walmart doesn't give a shit about their employees, they do care about a lawsuit. And when Danny made a post about this on Facebook asking for advice on what to do, it blew up, and that forced the company into damage control mode, where the Washington Post reports on Thursday, Davis got an email from the company offering to reinstate her employment with back pay, but she said she was hesitant to return to Walmart. Quote, "I think it would just be a hostile environment to return to," she said. Yeah, and I can't say I blame her, since they basically fired her for getting harassed because somebody thought that she was trans. I mean, how do you not, if you're a supervisor, review the security camera footage and try to figure out which customer this was so that way you can ban them from coming into the store? How do you blame the employee for getting harassed by a customer who followed her into the bathroom? I can't wrap my head around it. Like, they're complicit here. So the fact that they're only offering her to be rehired and back pay, that's not enough. See, they're trying to get her to not file a wrongful termination lawsuit. They're trying to smooth this over, but the reason why they're doing that, the reason why they're making that offer is because this went viral and people are recommending that she take legal action, which she should do. But I mean, I don't blame her for not wanting to go back, because that's very clearly not a great environment to be in. And what makes the story even more heartbreaking to me is this, quote, "Davis, who is gay, said she has felt disheartened as conservatives have stepped up attacks on LGBTQ+ rights. She is hoping to leave Florida, but she said the sudden loss of her job complicated those plans. The intolerance. I hear it all the time," Davis said. "It just feels like everything's closing in on me." And I find that really sad, because this is obviously just a regular ass person who's trying to get by, trying to mind their own business, and she still has to put up with that kind of bullshit. Still has to tolerate intolerance just to get a paycheck. That is sad. That is so sad. And you could tell she's just very shy. Her mom is the one who made that TikTok and tried to ask her questions to guide her through it, because she was very clearly traumatized. What a gross situation. My heart absolutely goes out to her. But with that being said, her mom did create a GoFundMe to help her in this time, which I'm going to link to down below. You know, it seems like she might have already found a new job, which is good. At least that's what her Facebook says. I don't know for sure. Either way, feel free to send her a couple of bucks if you can afford it, because she seems like a really good person. Her mom does too. And she and her mom made it clear in that video that the transphobic harassment that she experienced isn't uniquely wrong because she's a cis woman. It would have been wrong if she were trans too.
My heart goes out to the people that really are transgender, because
no one should deal with this.
Nobody should.
Terrifying.
It's scary.
No one should deal with this just trying to feel comfortable in their own skin.
Well said. The fact that there are so many anecdotes of transphobic creeps following women into bathrooms because they think that they're protecting women is disgusting. But this story goes so much deeper than Walmart's mishandling of the situation, because this phenomenon is the direct result of the lawmakers and influencers who defame trans women, who call them bathroom predators, who insinuate that they're threats to cis women. Those people are directly responsible for the increase in harassment of both trans and cis women. People like J.K. Rowling, Matt Walsh, Nancy Mace, to a lesser extent Anna Kasparian, who now doesn't know about locker rooms, as if trans people are a threat to other individuals in locker rooms. They're there to do what you're doing as well. They're not different. They're not uniquely predatory. You are the one who is a predator, who's preying on this marginalized community that just wants to live their fucking lives. But I mean, when you relentlessly fearmonger about trans women, you're not protecting cis women. You're not protecting them from cis women. You are endangering all women when you throw trans women under the bus. And look, these people know this. They know that cis women also don't meet the subjective criteria for womanhood for some people. And as a result of this anti-trans hysteria, cis women too have experienced this type of harassment. But that's something that they just don't care about. It's a price that they're willing to pay just to hurt trans women. They're okay with women like Danny being collateral damage in their war against trans people just to make sure that trans people are hurt the most. It's despicable. An attack on trans women is an attack against all women. But don't take it from me. Take it from one of the many cis women like Danny who've been targeted by transphobes for not being woman enough.
let's throw out this hypothetical scenario here, okay? Just for shits and giggles, okay? Just for conversation. Let's say I had a store. I ran a store. And I hired, all my employees were black, okay? And then some, couple of white dudes come in and they start harassing the black people, okay? And I figure, well, I can only stop that kind of harassment if I fire all the black people. Okay? I mean, think about the logic behind what Walmart did here, okay? Because that's essentially the same thing. Essentially the same thing. And I put it in the racial context to make it more clear. To show the ludicrous bullcrap that is, what they did. Okay? This employee did nothing. But because she looked too manly to some people, they thought, oh, she must be trans. Okay, so let's go and follow her to the bathroom. That in itself is a very weird thing for someone to do. I mean, I wouldn't, if I was going to harass somebody, I wouldn't follow them to the bathroom. Okay? So doesn't that, I mean, that's really perverted, I think, that somebody would do that. But the fact that, that this happened, and then she gets fired. She gets fired for it. It's like, oh, well, what were you supposed to do then? Okay, you were supposed to let them harass you? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like if someone's going to point a gun at you, give me all your money, and you say no, okay? You're gonna punish the guy that said no because he wouldn't give him the money. I mean, make it make sense, Walmart. Jesus, make this make sense, because it doesn't. Anybody looking at this story could tell this is bullshit. And of course, somebody must have said, hey, we can't, this looks dumb on the outside. We need to shut this up before it gets worse, because they found out that she wants to sue Walmart for that, which, hey, more power to her, because she deserves to sue them. And and then Walmart offers her job back with back pay. Okay, that only tells you that Walmart realized they can't win this case. If she decides to sue them, okay, for what they did to her, she's going to win this thing. All right? That's why they tried to bribe her to shut up, to come back to work, okay? You can have your job back. No! You see, they don't get the fucking point of this. They're not going to admit they were wrong in what they did, and that their thought process on that was also wrong. They won't admit to how stupid they were. That's what she wants to hear. She, and do you think they're going to change? Because, what happened, that they won't do it again? Well, hell, I mean, if they did this and they didn't feel, humiliated by what they did, then yeah, they'd do it again. And maybe other Walmarts would too. If, we don't know how these other managers are going to run their stores. Okay? But it reveals, what it does is it reveals the phobia that underlies all this thing, okay? The phobia that's out there, that we are dealing with to this day here, that we are dealing with across the country, that the right wing out there keeps that fucking thing churning all the time. That they've created such a phobia in this country that it's destroying lives that shouldn't be destroyed, okay? So, I just, it's embarrassing, for one reaction here, that this even happened, okay? And it should impact Walmart, in a different time, there would be punishment on Walmart for that, okay? For the employee, the boss, whoever runs that fucking store, okay? If this was a store policy in that particular store and not in other Walmarts, and that manager should be fired, okay, that fired her, okay? They should let them go. And there needs to be a reaffirmation here of we're here to serve customers. The employees' rights have to be protected. We can't condone prejudice against these employees, and we're not going to punish them for when things happen, okay? They need to do this. And people, when you get jobs at places like Walmart, read the fine print on what you sign, okay? And make sure that you're not setting yourself up for something like this to happen to you. You know, because yes, they are private entities. You're on their property. However, if you're an employee on their property, okay, then you got rights to be treated like a human being and not like some sacrificial lamb for some asshole's bigotry, okay? Protect yourself. You know, it just... They don't pay you enough to put up with that kind of shit or to be treated that way. Believe me, you don't. These Walmart workers, they bust their ass, a lot of them, and they get nothing. And yet they're told, oh, we're a family. Yeah. I see the family attitude when I go to my Walmart, okay? It's dog eat dog in there. Okay? People in there are struggling. They, you know, and dealing with the customers on top of the aggravations they get from their job is just monumental, okay? And I've seen how customers can be in there at any given day. I guess, you know, it can get pretty rowdy in there and the shit that goes on. You know, it's crazy. I don't know what it is about that fucking store, to be honest. And I think a lot of you probably have seen a lot of bizarre crap happening in your Walmarts. But that fucking particular store draws all the dregs of society, it seems like. You know, Christ. You know, I see people coming in and out of there wearing shit that, you know, you'd never see in a circus. You know, and I'm like, what? What is this place anyway? It's come as you are day or something, you know, or just don't wear clothes today, or, you know, Jesus. You never see them do that shit in a fucking mall, or go walk around like that in Sears or a JCPenney or something like that. But you walk into a Walmart and you're going to see a guy walk in wearing a clown outfit, or somebody wearing pajamas, or somebody wearing something that's falling off their body as they're walking. I saw a guy walking up the parking lot 2 weeks ago. His pants are practically off. His ass hanging out, and he's walking up the fucking street, you know, and I'm up the parking lot rather, and I'm thinking, you know, decency, it leaves the room when you go to that fucking store, and they really ought to crack down on that stuff, you know, in there when they're running it. That, look, this is not a goddamn playground here for idiots. You come into this fucking store, you're going to dress appropriately or get the fuck out. You know, they really ought to enforce a dress. I mean, they shouldn't have to. It should be, I mean, you go to Target, you don't really see that in there, right? So people pick Walmart as the place to just hang it out there, you know? And that needs to stop. But on top of that, you got shit like this that goes on in these damn stores. And it ain't, you know, not like this particular thing, but a lot of other bizarre things go on in Walmart, legal things, that shouldn't be going on there. Okay? And I'm not really sure what the people who run that corporation are like. Even if they even hear about this. Oh, they must. I mean, you know, if it's got something to do with Walmart, they must read it in the paper or something like that, or see it. Do they ever ask any questions about why it happened, or do they try to take steps to correct it so it doesn't happen again? It doesn't seem like there's any oversight to that corporation to improve it, to improve itself and how it operates. It just never seems like there's anything there that, you know. So it's like a very shoddily run corporation. I mean, it's there, but it's got a lot of flaws, you know. And a lot of times, you know, I feel like when I go in there that it's just it's like a give and take, you know. I mean, yeah, they have good prices on some things. It's overpriced in other things. And you know, the people going in there are kind of weird, and you know, and they just I don't know. It's just I don't know how to say, but it's just, it has an image of being less than the rest of the, you know, stores in the area. Okay, and they really need to improve on that image. I think they need to rise above that, because I think a lot of people feel the same way about that store, and that's probably why it drags in a lot of people who go in there and try to steal, or they go in there, or they do shit like this, harass, or they go in there, or they try to set fires, which happened here at this one, and then another Walmart somewhere else in the country. I watched that on the YouTube the other night. It's like, you know, chaos all the time that surrounds that place, and it really needs to improve itself, you know, and stop trying to be third world. And it's a you know, it's a goddamn zoo the way it is now. Okay, hold on a second here. I ordered something from eBay here about a week and a half ago, and I got a notification that it said, oh, it's been delivered. So I go out to the mailbox to see if it was there. Nope, wasn't there. You know, looked around, didn't see the package on the stoop or anywhere, you know, wasn't around. So I contact the seller, told the seller, look, the package delivered says been delivered, but I ain't got it. The fellow goes, well, if you go to the FedEx website, you know, you click the tracking number, shows a picture, a photograph of it being delivered. So take a look at that. So I did. I looked at it. Yeah, it was delivered, but not here. Sitting on some other patio somewhere I never seen. You know, I told the guy, I said, I see the picture, but it's not my home. I said, no, where I live, we don't have that. All the apartments are identical, and we don't have this two-step cement patio. Okay, we got steps that go up, you know, all the way up to the doors. So he says he's going to contact FedEx to see if they can investigate where the hell it went. In the meantime, he sent me out a duplicate item, okay, to replace the one, but he's sending it through the post office to deliver it. And I wrote back, I said, well, this isn't the first time FedEx did that to me. UPS never did that, post office never did that, but FedEx does this a lot. If people send stuff to me through FedEx, somehow that fucking package does not get here. Sometimes it does, but almost as many times as it does, you get the equal amount of times where it doesn't, and I'm not sure why that is. You know, if everybody else can get it right and FedEx can't, okay, what does that say about FedEx? They're not very good at what they do. Okay, a very simple thing. Very simple thing. Okay, the last time they fucked up, they delivered a package of mine to somebody, neighbor behind me. And they were kind enough to bring it over here because they saw the address and they knew where it belonged. But again, you know, I mean, what do they do? I mean, they miss by 4 or 5 doors or something. I mean, it's like, well, Christ, if you got that close, how could you screw it up? I mean, you knew you was in the right ballpark, but you just don't toss it out the window and hope it lands on the right doorstep. I mean, it's like, you know, and you know, I always worry a lot when they deliver stuff because they don't always bring it inside. They leave it outside, and if it's raining or if there's snow, or hell, even if somebody's out there might see it, take it and go, and you know, and then just like they wash their hands of it. It's not my fault, you know. But I think, you know, if we ever lose the post office or UPS and we had to depend solely on FedEx, I think a lot of people are going to be fucking bitchy and ugly as all merry hell because we're being forced to buy a lot of our stuff online now. And these companies are going to have to be on their damn toes because people don't like mistakes. When we want our stuff, we want it. When it says it's been delivered, it better be delivered. Okay? We don't want to see a picture of it sitting on Mars somewhere and say it's been delivered. Okay? That ain't here. You know? So, yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, whenever you put responsibility in the hands of the private sector, you know, you never know what you're going to get. And I think this guy probably pissed, but I told him, if you're going to send me another one, don't send it that way. He said, no, I sent it, post office is going to send it to you. I said, all right. But he's going to go to FedEx and have them investigate, where the hell did you put that box? You said it was delivered, but the guy just said it ain't even anywhere close to where he's at. Was he drunk? I mean, are you guys drunk when you're doing your jobs or what? I mean, how could you miss this? I mean, look, I can use my phone to locate a place where I need to go if I don't know where it is, and it'll take me right to it. There's no reason why anybody in FedEx should be making mistakes like that. Okay, it should be obvious. Okay, there's no excuse for that. I mean, he wasn't even close. I don't know where that package ended up, but it was not here. And I'm telling you, how could he be that wrong? He could not have been paying attention to a damn thing. If you're working there and you never delivered in this area before, you're going to have to depend a lot on GPS and all that to do your job. This guy never did, I guess. I don't know. All right, so that's it for today. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. So subscribe, comment, and share, and keep your ears open for health issues out there. And while you're doing that, keep yourself aware of what's going on, with your community and stuff. Help people out, help each other out. Times will be tough. And so we're going to have to really focus hard on being tough to adjust to them. I'll talk to you later. Take care.